Welcome to the second episode of my podcast, Phil Jordan, Psychic Sleuth. Today's topic is going to be the world of dreams. I want to share with you some of the knowledge I've gained through 60 years of working with the mind. I take my work very seriously, but also know we must keep the supernatural and parapsychology as an intriguing investigation into the seen and unseen experiences in our world. We must keep the intrigue to personal enjoyment and entertainment. I hope you will enjoy my thoughts and opinions, but remember, you will have your own thoughts and opinions. They may coincide, or you may disagree. Let's let it be intriguing fun. So tonight we're going to talk about dreams. And I think the significance of the dreams in our world is to remind us that our mind continues to work even if we're sleeping. And the dream world can be extremely interesting and very intriguing. We've all had the experience of the difference between a dream and a nightmare. And a dream is sort of a peaceful experience in a mental phenomenon while we're sleeping. The nightmare is a not so peaceful experience, something that may wake us up all of a sudden feeling we've been through a horrific experience. But we'll get more into that as we go along. And a lot of it's our emotional and psychological attitude about what we are dreaming. I learned early in life to shed some importance on dreams because though our conscious mind is sleeping and giving our body rest, our unconscious mind is still very active, sort of like a radar screen surrounding us and letting us know things that are going on either in our world or in the world of dreams. And I'm going to share a lot of those experiences with you tonight. I do think that we have to first understand how the brain works. In our conscious awaking state, our brain waves are sort of in what we call a beta state of mind. It's an awake awareness. We know what is going on. We can respond in daily life to all the things we need to respond to in complete awareness of what is going on. Then as we begin to drift off into sleep, our mind begins to transcend into the alpha state of mind. And the alpha state is where the dreams occur, where psychic events occur, and becomes the more interesting and intriguing aspect of dreaming while we're sleeping. Then it goes a little bit deeper into the theta state of mind, and as we cross from alpha into theta, we have deeper dreams, more profound psychic events, things that will linger with us and stay in our unconscious mind. Some of them may be fortuitous. Some of them may be precognitions. And then we go into a delta sleep after theta. And delta is a very deep sleep. We probably won't remember anything that occurs in the delta brain waves. It's the same brain wave we're in when we're in a coma or when we're under anesthesia, that the mind is still working, but we're not aware of it. The body is sleeping, both mentally, physically, in all aspects. So we have all had those sleeps where we went so deep it was very hard to wake up out of them. And there's different types of dreams. There's dreams of relaxation, environmental dreams, precognitive dreams, spiritual dreams, psychological dreams, worry dreams, and repetitive and recurrent dreams. And so we'll talk a little bit about them as Tony here is going to come up with some of the questions that we are asked. So we'll begin to explore the world of dreams.
All right, sounds good. Do you feel there's any significance in our dreams?
Well, I think the significance is, again, for our own instinct, for our own awareness of the world around us. Even though our body is sleeping, we come to an understanding that we're very aware in our waking state, and our mind wants us to remain a bit aware in our sleeping state, and that's why we go through the dreaming thing. It's part of survival, part of instinct, part of relaxation. A lot of people say they don't dream. I think we all dream, just some are insignificant and not worth remembering. But we'll talk about that as well.
All right. So as far as the different types of dreams, maybe you can give a couple examples. The first one you had mentioned before was relaxation.
Yeah, relaxation dreams are pleasant dreams. They're dreams that we might be walking along the shore of a lake, or we may be just at a gathering where we're around people we know and love and people that are pleasant to be with, and just dreams that further relax our body, but also tend to relax our mind a little bit after perhaps a stressful event or a stressful day. So a relaxation dream is purely, I think, to relax mind, body, and soul.
Okay. How about environmental dreams?
Environmental dreams are intriguing. They are created by some sort of stimulus in the environment. For instance, you may have a dream that you're at a fire and you hear the fire whistle, or the ambulance going by, or the fire trucks, and it takes you immediately and creates a dream that you're at such a scene. And what has actually happened is, it may be that outside your home, a fire truck has gone by with a siren blaring, or an ambulance, or the fire whistle in your town has been alerting the volunteer fire company. And so your mind immediately takes that stimulus and creates a dream around it just as it's happening. And it's very fascinating how it does that, because it's so instantaneous, but it will do that. It may be a stimulus from your own physical being. I know one time I had a dream that I was shot in the stomach, and it was sort of a bad dream, but yet it lingered with me, so I was very aware that there was a reason for that dream. A month later, I started having stomach problems, and right where I was shot in the stomach in my dream, they located an ulcer that had to be treated with medication and done away with. So my body was telling me, before I experienced any pain, that there was an ulcer forming there. And so it made me very aware. One of the other dreams that people will experience that probably shouldn't mention, it's a little gross, but you may have a dream that you're someplace and you have to go to the bathroom really bad. And And you may even go to the bathroom in your sleep because it's so real to you. Um, that often happens with people that become inebriated or drink a lot of alcohol because their body is reacting and creates a dream, and instead of getting up and going to the bathroom, the dream creates it as a reality. So those are sort of environmental dreams as you have it.
Very interesting. I'm assuming this kind of flows right in with, a part of being a psychic too, but like precognitive dreams.
Precognitive means knowledge beforehand. And we've all had dreams that maybe we didn't remember, but some of them we do, where it is so real, like we're right there. Everything is happening exactly as if we're there. And then it lingers with us or stays with us, and then maybe several hours later, a week later, a year later, 3 years later, that dream comes to pass in the exact detail in which you dreamt it. So that is precognition, knowledge beforehand. When I dreamt about an uncle having a heart attack and 6 hours later that happened, it was in such detail that I just knew everything was going to turn out the way the dream did. And it did do that. He survived and had 3 more coronaries after that until he died. But I even knew the name of the nurse that would be tending him at the hospital. So that is a precognition. That is knowledge beforehand. And it creates such a mystery of life. Why would I know that 6 hours before it happened? And it shows us that our brain somehow can receive knowledge that is a precognition of things that are going to happen.
All right, another type of dream, spiritual.
Spiritual dreams, or dreams where we dream of deceased people, deceased loved ones, or somebody that may have died recently, somebody that may have died a long time ago. So the spiritual dream is intriguing because what I think happens there is the spirit of our loved one comes to us because we're connected to our loved ones by love. And they come to us, and our mind immediately creates a dream around it, so it's more believable to us as humans because we sort of have to create a belief in order to believe, I guess. And for me, the spiritual dream is very much a telltale sign of my faith, because it shows me that there's something beyond. There is something that lies beyond, where the person we knew and loved is around us in that bond of love and can let us know that they have overcome death, and that the spirit, the energy that kept them alive in their body, no longer needs that body. And so it leaves the body, but they maintain their identity through their spirit, because we identify everybody not only by what we visually see, but by what we spiritually experience with them. And so a spiritual dream is very, very intriguing to me. They're just intriguing.
Could you explain psychological dreams and maybe an example of one of those?
Psychological dream is sort of connected to the worry dream. Something we're psychologically going through where we need an answer. And it may come to us in our dreams. The answer may come to us in our dreams. We can't figure it out in life because we're too worried about it, or too involved with it, or too anxious with it. And so once the body rests and the mind begins to transcend into a relaxation state, we may dream about what we're thinking about and need an answer to, but the answer will come to us in our dream. And when I have those dreams, when I wake up, I feel peaceful. And I know that the answer was in the dream and that it's going to be a valid answer for me. Sometimes we just worry too much about things. I want to go back to the precognitive dream for a moment. When I was about 11 years old, my mother, who was very into to intuition, psychic things, spiritual things, and dreams. One morning we were having breakfast and she said to me, "One of the neighbors died last night." And I thought, how does she know that? We were poor people. We didn't have a phone. And it was, no one had been to the house before we were having breakfast. And she went on to tell that she had a dream that a black coach, a carriage, drawn by 6 black horses, driven by a man in a black cloak with a tall stovepipe hat, came down the street, turned around, and stopped in the middle of the street. And of course, that really intrigued me because it looked, you could visualize it, so to speak. And we lived on a dead-end street, and so the horses would have to turn around to come back out. The man got off the carriage, got down beside the carriage, opened the door, held it open for a few moments, and then closed the door. And there was nobody that got in, but the man got back on the carriage and drove off down the street. And she said, I said, "Well, that's weird. Why did nobody get in the carriage?" And she says, "Because they harvested a spirit off the street last night," meaning one of the neighbors had died. I was 11 years old, and I thank God I knew my mother was intuitive. And within 20 minutes, one of the neighbors came collecting for flowers for another neighbor who had died in the middle of the night. Back then, it was very common practice for the neighbors to all chip in a little bit of money to buy a bouquet of flowers from the neighborhood. And she came and she said that the man down the street had died in the middle of the night. Well, it wasn't news to us because my mother had already told us that, and it all came to her through a dream.
So I know this happens to me every so often, where I'll have a repetitive dream or the same dream occurs multiple times. Just in my case, it's like driving down a road that gets flooded over, and and it happens again, and it's a local street. So I feel like everybody must have some type of repetitive dreams.
Repetitive dreams are very often connected to a psychological dream. And they'll be repetitive, I think. They'll be repetitive until the reason for the dream is fulfilled. The repetitive dream that you have described shows that you're pursuing something and are going to have a roadblock, that you're not going to be able to pursue it to the end. Something's going to negate it, something's going to eliminate it or subdue it until later. And it's a repetitive dream that may be the same, but the reason for the dream may not be the same. For instance, you might be pursuing a college course and something happens that you can't finish it. Or you may be ready to take a trip and something happens that you can't finish it. So that dream is telling you, be prepared, because what you're pursuing probably will not come to pass in the way that you want it to come to pass. And I had a very unique experience in my life with repetitive or recurrent dreams. About the age of 18, and it was during the Vietnam War, I dreamt that our family was huddled in the uh, dirt floor basement of our house, and we could see enemy soldiers come by the cellar window. They'd come into the house, you could hear them walking across the floor, and they would open the cellar door and you could see the barrels of their guns, but then you would wake up. And I had that repetitive dream from the age of 18 till the age of 35. And I found that very interesting because, of course, no one really wanted to go to Vietnam and fight in the war. And I was headed for college, so I was hoping I didn't get drafted or have to do that. But because I was eligible for the draft, I knew I could be called at any time. So my mind created the fact that be prepared, you may have to go off to war. And because nothing happened when they opened the door and I just saw the gun barrels and I woke up from the dream, it showed me that I probably would not have to go off to war. And I dreamt that repeatedly until I was 35 years old. The last time I dreamt it, I was 35 years old. I don't think it's coincidence that I was no longer eligible for the draft at 35 years old. I wouldn't have to go to war. I would have served my country the best way I could, but my dreams were telling me that I wouldn't have to do that. And so I found that dream and reflect back on that dream often because I probably had that dream 18 or 20 times in those years. And so that was 17 years. And I had that dream frequently. But it was intriguing to me that it was the exact same dream, the exact same incidences, the exact same people, the exact same people coming through the house and opening the cellar door, and then I would wake up. So repetitive dreams usually will reoccur until the reason for the dream is fulfilled. And so I find that very interesting.
Well, I know this happens to me all the time. I have it could be a great dream or a frustrating dream, and I cannot remember it in the morning.
Some people just don't remember their dreams. If you're into dreams, you should keep a notebook on your nightstand and just put one word things in that will remind you of the dream itself. Some dreams are just meant for relaxation and they're not worth remembering. Usually, if we remember a dream, there's something in that dream that is worth remembering. And therefore, we want to make sure that we remember the dream because it was so profound, our memory keeps it with us.
Yep, I've tried to do that, recording into my cell phone in the middle of the night to try to remember the dream. Is it possible that we can have multiple dreams at the same time?
Well, we can have multiple dreams in the same sleep. I usually sleep only between 5 and 6 hours a night. And in the course of my sleep, I generally each night have anywhere between 3, 4, 5 dreams. And most of them I can remember till first thing in the morning. And then I suddenly don't need to remember them, so I sort of let them go, so to speak.
Okay. Is there a way that anybody can learn to interpret their dreams?
Well, I think that we have to review our dreams. We have to decide what in the dream was profound, what was exaggerated, what was expressed. And that may take us not only to the source of the dream, of why we're dreaming it, but it may be what we're supposed to pay attention to. For instance, my dream of being shot in the stomach and then 6 weeks later or so having an ulcer. If I would have paid attention back then, I would have known that I had an ulcer developing and could eat more properly or whatever, and probably not have to go through the medical treatment for the ulcer. And so I think that interpreting, it's sort of like playing the piano. Practice makes perfect. And if you practice looking at your dreams and sort of taking them apart and seeing what is profound, what is exaggerated, because if it's exaggerated or expressed very, very profoundly in your dream, that is probably something you need to pay attention to. And as you work with that over the course of your lifetime, you can begin to become more involved in understanding symbols in your dreams, understanding what a significant person means in your dreams, things of that nature. So I think that we have to learn to interpret our dreams sort of through experience. But in my work, I often try to interpret dreams for other people, and I've become pretty accurate at that. My mother was very, very gifted at interpreting her dreams, and she would say things that seemed almost impossible, and then suddenly they would come to pass.
So could dream interpretation be of help in like psychology or counseling?
I think whenever I talk with somebody in my work and in my training with psychology and counseling, that I often will say to people, "What are you dreaming? What what do you dream?" Because if they tell you what their dream is, they may be very very quickly telling you something that is pertinent to their behavior or to an event that's going on in their life or something they're psychologically um, uh, pursuing to get an answer to. Or a lot of times our unconscious mind will bring forth a remedy for conscious behavior. So I think as psychology shows it, I think that dreams are certainly a gateway to understanding of our spiritual and psychological self.
Are there any other examples that you could maybe give of dreams, whether they're your own or others that you've heard from different people?
Yeah, I've got a couple more. I've already shared some of them, like the dream of the death of the neighbor and the impending ulcer. One of my most wonderful dreams, which was a spiritual experience, it was a spiritual dream that turned into a spiritual experience. And when I think of it, I can still visualize everything about that dream and that experience. I was doing some teaching in my last year of college, and I was teaching it. No, it was beyond my last year of college. It was when I was doing some substitute teaching, and I lived in a small town in a very tiny apartment. And one night, I remember I awakened, the clock said 3:08. And I awakened sitting on the side of my bed. And sitting next to me was my mother. And my mother had been dead for 6 years. And so I was so pleased that she was there with me because I was very close to my mother. And very pleased she was there with me. And she said to me, and again, it was like she was there and I was awake, but yet it started when I awakened from dreaming about her, apparently. And so she put her hand on my knee and she said, "Philip, you have grieved my death far too long. You have your own life you've got to live, and I had my life, and it's time you went on with your life." And it was at that moment that I realized my mother can't be sitting next to me. She's dead. And so I looked at beside me where she sat, and she was no longer there. And so I think that my mother knew of my grief, and she had to come as a mother would and take care of it to heal me from my grief. Not once since that dream have I grieved my mother. I appreciate her life. I appreciate what she did for me in my life. But as she said, she had her life, and I have to have my life. And I think that's why we often dream of deceased loved ones, because we need the validation that the spirit of the person we love that gave their body life has continued beyond this world. And a very fascinating thing. You know, in the Bible, it talks about with St. Joseph, he listened to his dreams, and often it would be said, an angel of the Lord spoke to him. And who's to say the angel of the Lord, maybe it wasn't Gabriel or any of the archangels, maybe it was his grandmother, or maybe it was somebody he knew and loved that wanted to convey information to him because of that love, to get up and take the child away from the rule of Herod so he wouldn't be put to death. And so I think that dreams and psychic occurrences, which we will cover in another episode, when we convey my thoughts of faith and my psychic work and how they integrate with each other and how they certainly prove each other. For me, my faith proves my work, and my work proves my faith. And we will talk that in a future episode. You know, I had another fascinating dream that I'm sure everybody wishes that they could have. I enjoy occasionally going to a casino. And I only live about a half hour away from a casino. And I have taken a brief 20-minute nap after lunch each day for my entire adult life. So twice this last year, during my nap, I had a dream that I won money with certain numbers, and I play Keno a bit, so it was 5 numbers. So I thought, out of respect for my mother, who loved talking about dreams, and actually out of the enjoyment of gambling, I wrote those numbers down, and I went to the casino, and I put a $20 bill in the machine, and I bet $2, and spun it the first time, and nothing happened. The second time it came in, the numbers, I got a bonus, and the second spin of the bonus, all the numbers I had chosen, all 5 numbers came in to the tune of $900, and then another spin came in for 80. So that dream and those numbers that day came in for $980. And then one other time in the last year, I had a dream about numbers to play, and they came in for $1,300. And the sad part is the first dream happened the day after the New York State lottery came in for $1.5 million, or $1.5 billion, I should say. And of course, it wasn't the numbers I dreamt, so I did the right thing. I got the right machine in the right place, but it helped me not only financially, but it showed me that I keep wanting to dream. I keep wanting to dream about numbers, and if I do, I'm going to pay attention. I'm not going to create an addiction where it ruins my life, but it certainly adds to the intrigue and suspense in my life, and I find nothing wrong with it. So anyway, it's my business anyway, but I do enjoy dreams, and I dream every night, and when I wake up, I think about the dreams. The last 6 months or so, I've had dreams probably once a week where I'm in a city someplace and I either can't find my car or I can't find the place where I'm going. And it's always a city that's on a hill and a new city to me, and usually bigger than any city that I've been to. But it's intriguing because I wander around the city and I finally find out where I'm going and how to get there. And that shows me that because I'm at this point in my life and contemplating where my career needs to go, which we just started the podcast, so that might be part of it. But I've sort of, at this point in my life where I should be contemplating retiring, I'm not contemplating retirement. In my dream, it just shows me where I need to go in a different direction, and I will find where I'm supposed to be. And one of those, I just recently published my book, A Winter's Journey, which is a wonderful spiritual journey of a little girl during World War II. A Winter's Journey. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Archway Publishing. And I've been writing 7 chapters in another spiritual novel, which hopefully will be done within the next 6 weeks or so. So that'll be out by this fall, hopefully. And that's going to be called The Grove. So that's going to be fun as well. I'm enjoying my writing. I put out a newsletter every Saturday morning for my church to let them know that the Mass is at 4:30 in the afternoon, but I always put a spiritual message there, and people enjoy those messages, so people can be put on that list if they so want to. And so it's all very intriguing. So you had some questions that people had written
yes,
to me.
I got a few emails that I can see if you can answer.
Okay.
I picked out.
These are personal messages that people want me to work with. And if you get on our email, which is...
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you have any questions you'd like to answer during a podcast, you can send a question to philjordanpsychic@gmail.com. That's philjordanpsychic@gmail.com. And if we use your question, I'll be sure to email you back so you're aware of it. So I picked out, I think, 3 that we can maybe do.
Okay.
From Pete. My father passed away a couple years ago. Is there any message for me from him, or do you see anything from him? His name is Pat.
Pat. Okay. Well, first of all, I think that for some reason I feel Pat had struggles the last 16 months of his life. For some reason, it felt like that. But yeah, I think his death came not only sudden to him, but sudden to everybody else. But death is sort of an unexpected visitor, usually in the night. But I think that he passed unexpectedly, but yet after 16 months of illness. I keep seeing something about a black onyx ring, and it seems like it has a stone in the center of it, like a diamond or something of that nature. And I don't know if Pete was supposed to get that ring, or if that's a ring his father had, or a ring he may have bought for his father. But a black onyx ring with a diamond in the center. It looks like there was some gold work a little bit around the diamond in the center. But somehow I feel that's somehow connected to Pete and to his father, Pat. So I think that's significant. And him showing me that, I guess, just wants me to convey to Pete that his father's in spirit and is comfortable and wants to make sure that things are the way he wanted them to be.
Okay. Very good. I have another from Anne-Marie. There's a list of a couple questions, so if you can do a couple of them. Along the father lines, can you tell me if my father sends any signs to me since he has passed?
I feel that your father has sent some signs to you. I feel often birds are messengers of the spirit, and we often think that it has to be a bright colored bird that's the messenger of the spirit. But there is something about your father that I see a black bird, which looks like from this area would be a starling or a crow, sitting on a weathered fence post that had barbed wire at one point attached to it, but it wasn't an enclosed fence thing. The barbed wire had been broken and was sort of down each side of the barbed wire. And it feels to me as though there's snow on the ground and there's kids sleigh riding down a hill, and it feels like one of them might have got tangled up in that barbed wire, and the messenger to that is the blackbird, sort of showing that there's danger there. But of course, I feel like that's in the history or behind me, and so that probably is something that may have happened when Anne-Marie was young, or something that her father, it almost seems like there would be a small scar on someone's arm where they got tangled up in that barbed wire. So that may be something she'll have to check out in the family, but I see it very vividly, so I know that is somehow going to be significant.
Okay, she has another really interesting question. If we experience any trauma in our life and it's like unresolved, does it get stored in our body? Like, could it give us stomach problems or issues with certain organs or headaches?
There's a very strong connection, I believe, with the mind, the mental self, and the physical self. If we go through an experience like where we feel something has ripped our guts out, that we may very well develop an inflammation or colitis or something connected to the physical self. If we go through a loss that we can't overcome, it may create heart-related issues like palpitations, irregular heartbeat, simply because our heart has been emptied. And I think that there's all kinds of things. I think there's a study done where the mental self connects to the physical self. And I think that's so true. I was listening to a nun speak online today, and she was saying about that if we keep our minds busy and stay in the positive or happy side of life, we will continue to live because we will be enjoying the earthly plane here. It's only when we concede to the negativity in life that we go through issues. They might be physical issues, they might just be emotional issues, depression, something of that nature. But somehow it will be carried forth in a physical attribute. Often people with back issues are people that have carried the burden of other people all of their life, and their back is weakened by carrying mentally the burdens of other people. So I think that's a very good question, and I hope I answered that to your satisfaction.
Excellent. I have one more. An email from Barbara regarding her daughter Lynn. She said, has not spoken to me for 1 year. Can you tell me why? And will she continue to keep me from seeing my grandsons? So Barbara and their daughter is Lynn.
Now, how I work with that is when I listen to that question and I actually become empathic to what she's sort of going through. And when she says, will she keep me from my grandchildren? I immediately feel the empty heart that she's going through, but then I feel it filling back up. I feel it filling with joy. So I don't think that her grandchildren will be out of her life forever. I think it might take as long as another year, year and a half, but I think that that will somehow be significant. I feel that for some reason, Lynn is trying to balance out things between a significant other, her spouse or whatever, a significant other, and her mother. But I also think that Lynn fears that her mother maybe unconsciously, not even knowing it, be a little bit controlling for Lynn as a mother herself. And so I think that something may have happened probably at a holiday gathering. Almost seems like it's Christmas because I feel that holiday. And something was either said or done that that Lynn may have felt that that was a little bit controlling. But I also think that she keeps a distance because I think she's possessive of her own family. And I think her spouse or her significant other is a little bit possessive of her. So she finds that she's got to keep her family contained and not allow other people in that she has loved. And she'll come to realize the love that has been given her by Barbara throughout her lifetime. And I think that will end up being healed, but I think it will take anywhere from 14 to 19 months before that will feel like it's back to where it should be. Okay.
All right, very good. And again, I will send emails back to the people that we answered the questions to. And the email, again, if you want to send in questions, is philjordanpsychic@gmail.com.
So that was our second episode, and now we're going to do another episode in the next few days, maybe next week. Episode 3 is going to be on the difference between a psychic and a medium and what to be cautious of, because you can be very taken advantage of in both regards. So hopefully my experiences with other people will alert others as to what to expect when you go for a reading. And again, we have to keep the psychic experiences, they are a reality because everyone goes through them, but we also have to keep our investigation of it. We have to contain ourselves with common sense, not be taken advantage of, and not be caught up with a fraudulent experience. So that should be a fun time for me because I have a lot of different stories to tell you about people that have been taken advantage of, and also about some of the experience I've had that amazed me. And still today, when I tell somebody something that is extremely accurate, I think, how did I know that? Well, Phil, you've been a psychic for 60 years. So I will explain that some people are psychics, some people are mediums, and some people possess both abilities. So we'll explain that in episode 3 of Phil Jordan's Psychic Sleuth. Thank you for listening.